Hey guys, so I realise that we are almost at the midpoint for 2017, but I still wanted to make a roundup of my favourite books from 2016. I toyed with the idea of starting fresh, so just walking you through my challenge for 2017 in terms of reading, but to be honest I'm not moving all that quickly, and there were some really good books that I read in 2016 and I didn't want to miss the opportunity to kind of seek some recommendations from you guys for similar books. And just to talk about what I enjoyed. So introduction done, I think I'm just going to start talking about the books. The first book that I have to talk about is actually a series, and it is the Wicked and the Divine series by Gillen, McKelvie and Cowles. I've got the first three here. The fifth one I think is being released next month. I have got the fourth but I haven't read it yet. So the concept is quite simple. There are 12 gods from various pantheons. They are incarnated into human form every 90 years, but within 2 years they will all die. So the comics are following that trajectory. So it's quite a cool concept. The writing itself is quite clever, it's quite amusing. The characters, as I start to work my way through the various issues, are starting to develop very nicely. I feel like I'm really getting a grip for who stands for what within this pantheon. In terms of rating, I've given all of these either 3 or 4 stars on Goodreads so far. The art itself is stunning. Let me just give you a quick glimpse. As you can see, they are visually just gorgeous. I really enjoy reading them, just mesmerising to look at. What I will say is that these are a touch confusing. Now, it could be me because I read them so quickly that I'm not fully absorbing the nuance of what's happening, or it could be that I'm supposed to be confused at this point. I'm really not sure. But it doesn't diminish my enjoyment of these at all, so I'm going to stick with it, and hopefully the things that I don't quite understand will start to become clear as we progress through the series. If you've read these, let me know what you think. If you haven't and you give them a go, I'd love to hear from you. Am I the only one that's confused? Are we supposed to be confused at this point? One thing that I think might be lacking is my understanding and awareness of some of the gods that are mentioned in here. I have got earmarked to watch later a series on pantheons from around the globe throughout history on the Crash Course YouTube channel. I found some of their series fantastic in the past, so I will be watching that. I'm going to leave a link to it down below, so that if you are interested in checking that out before I get to it, then let me know if it's any good. But yes, I'm just hoping that being able to get to grips with the gods a little better might help me understand what's happening all in these comics. So the second book I wanted to talk about is Neil Gaiman's Stardust. Stardust is one of my absolute favourite movies, and I have to confess that I watched it having no idea that it was based on a book, much less a Neil Gaiman book. I told my friend that I wanted to get into some Gaiman and start reading some Gaiman, and she advised against American Gods and suggested that I start with this instead, and she was absolutely right to do so. If you haven't seen the movie, I thoroughly recommend it. If you haven't read the book, I thoroughly recommend it. Somebody who had seen the movie first, I was really pleasantly surprised to discover that this was funnier, ruder, smarter in some ways than the movie ended up being. Typical Hollywood treatment. I gave this a solid 4. Really, really enjoyed it. I will definitely be going and reading some more Neil Gaiman in the future, so if you have any recommendations, let me know your favourite down below, and I will put it on my list. So the third book I have here is Watchmen, another graphic novel. I apologise if you are not into them. And I have some mixed feelings about this one. Let me start by saying that I'm glad I read it, and I gave it 3 stars out of 5, so I didn't hate it. But my problem with this was that I just don't think it was as narratively successful as it was trying to be. So you've got stories looped into stories. It's very postmodern, but it just made it difficult to read for me. So it's obviously a very cinematic medium, but from a reader's perspective it was very tricky to kind of be pulled from one reality to the next, and at some points they were kind of almost concurrent. It was very, very difficult to sort of process. Now this could just be me, other people may slip in and out of that a lot more kind of seamlessly than I could, but I personally just found it quite jarring and difficult to read. One thing I will say is that I would always rather see ambition in a narrative than kind of pandering and falling back on stereotypical or kind of simple structures. I really appreciate what they were going for here, but for me personally as a reader, it didn't quite come off. Obviously this is a core work and I am really glad that I have read it, and oh boy, can Adrian Veidt talk. fourth book that I have to talk about is Levitt and Dubner's Freakonomics, and this was recommended to me by a senior colleague. I've always appreciated his problem-solving skills, so when he advised that I take a look at Freakonomics, I put it straight on my Goodreads list. It's actually taken me about 3 years to get around to reading it, but I'm really, really glad that I did. So this is a non-fiction work, and it's written by an economist and a writer. And basically, it's kind of a bite-sized but quite compelling journey through applying statistical and analytic viewpoints to problems in order to get a different perspective. So working through alternative thought processes, you know, stepping back from the most immediate or obvious and just taking another view on what could be happening under the surface of a bigger issue. So for me, this is a real kind of eye-opener in terms of interrogating the information available to you, and I just think that it's made me a better problem solver having read it, but it is also really genuinely entertaining. I know some people looking through other reviews have issues with some of the data sets that were used, but all that aside, I think there is, you know, an important lesson to be learned here in terms of what may appear to be the most obvious answer may not necessarily be the right one, so to kind of check again and look from a few viewpoints before you decide on, say, the root cause of something. Yeah, this was just a very thought-provoking book. I really enjoyed it, and because it's kind of broken down into little cases, you can pick it up and put it down. You haven't got to sit here solidly, so if non-fiction isn't your thing, you can break it up and read it between novels, for example. So yeah, a 5-star recommendation from me. Really, really, really enjoyed it.